welcome. My name is Justin, and I am a son of God and an addict, and the host of the RICO 12 speaker meeting. As an active member in the Rooms of Recovery, I'm grateful to be able to be used to host this RICO 12 project, which is an organization whose addictions include alcohol, drugs, lust, and sex, food, and gambling, just to name a few. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to learn the similarities of addiction and to gain tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We invite recovering addicts with at least 1 year sobriety and who are actively working their recovery in their respective fellowships to share their experience, strength, and hope on a live Zoom webinar each Friday at noon Central Time for 20 to 25 minutes. Then we, the live audience, get the opportunity to ask questions of the speaker for another 20 to 25 minutes. If you are hearing this meeting in recorded podcast form and would like to participate as a live audience member in the future, please go to www.reco12.com, that's RECO12.com, to learn more and submit your email address there to receive weekly invitations. Now, before I introduce our guest speakers for today, I want to make a quick announcement about plans for RICO 12 in this year, in 2022. Beginning in March, we'll start a 12-week series on each of the 12 steps of recovery. I'm searching for people who are absolutely passionate about one of the 12 steps and come from any and all fellowships of recovery, and who would like to share with us their experience, strength, and hope on that step. The basic format will be the same, 20 to 25 minutes of a share on that step, and then 20 to 25 minutes of Q&A from the live audience. If you or someone in your fellowship is passionate about one of the steps and just seems to share about a particular step and the power of that step in their life, please consider reaching out to me at rico12pod@gmail.com, and we'll discuss it and get it scheduled. As an FYI, there are already a couple of steps spoken for, so get in quickly if you would like to do this. We look forward each week to receiving the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now, let's introduce our guest speakers for today. As you can see, if you're here live, we've got two of them, and this is awesome. And today is the 83rd meeting, just for your information. This is Andrew and Sara P. from Poland, whose topic is Sexaholic nuts and bolts for a healthy relationship. Now, here's a little bit about Andrew and Sara. I'm going to introduce each of them, so bear with me here for a second. Andrew is a 47-year-old recovering sexaholic, sober for 6 years. He joined the SA Fellowship 11 years ago. He does his step work and has a sponsor and a few sponsees in SA. He has also worked the steps in CODA. He is clean from drugs for 23 years, but has never joined a drug fellowship. Recently, he started to do part-time work as an addiction therapist in a small clinic that specializes in sex addiction. In recovery, he found God and God's guidance. Thanks to his grace, God's grace, he has been married for 2 years to his lovely wife, Sara, who he first met in SA. This last year in July, their baby girl was born, and right now he is living the life he had never expected to be possible. Now, here's a little bit about Sara. Sara is a 30-year-old recovering sex addict, sober from lust, thanks to God's grace, for 4.5 years. She has worked the 12 steps with a sponsor and served as a sponsor to other female sex addicts in her fellowship. Since she is married to another recovering sex addict, she is also part of the S-Anon Fellowship, which helps her to address patterns of codependency and heal from them as well. When she first joined the SA Fellowship, she was a broken woman. She felt like her life was over. She reached her lowest low and didn't expect there to be any decent life possible after that. But God, in his goodness, made her recover rapidly, and soon after gave her a wonderful husband and best friend, Andrew. They have their highs and lows, but mutual faith and the 12-step principles keep them close and make their marriage flourish. We're excited about this. Andrew and Sara, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. We are very excited to be here, and thanks, Justin, for having us. So, Sara, would you like to start with the topic?
Sure, why not? So the subject is nuts and bolts of healthy relationship. I don't know if we are just there yet. I mean, I think it would be an overstatement to say that we are a healthy couple as much as to say that we are completely free from, our patterns of addiction. I think it's a process. Like everyone who struggles with some form of addiction knows that it doesn't go away in one day. It's work that you put into it every day, and it's working with God's grace. So I would say that we are a recovering couple, and that's good enough for me. Anyways, so I think you're going to be better at talking about the rules of dating and things like that, because you're very passionate about it. And Andrew also has more knowledge on what works and doesn't work, because you have more of dating experience while in recovery. Sure. Andrew was my first choice, thanks goodness, once I joined the program. But I guess what I would like to share from my perspective is what made a difference, and what made it possible for me to be in a marriage in the first place. What is so special about this bond that we have? And yeah, as I said, what made it possible. So as you presented my story, Justin, before I joined SA, I think I was just desperate to love and to be loved, which I never addressed as a real issue. I thought I was depressed. I got diagnosis of bipolar and other. I struggled emotionally, but I never really addressed my relationship issue as an addiction. I mean, I've never even heard of it, but there was definitely a pattern of getting into relationships that were really up and down, and then had a catastrophic ending with me feeling worse and worse, and unlovable and broken. And at some point, this love addiction progressed into sex addiction, and that's when it became more and more detrimental. And like you said, I reached my lowest low, and I felt so desperate. I remember I was in France then. I went to some community, and I prayed to God, if you are there, I need a clear sign, and I need you to really shout to me, not to talk to me, but shout really loud. And something happened, and I got this idea in my mind that I had some sort of addiction issue. And the next day I was back to Poland, joined my first meeting, and it was amazing. When I heard stories of other recovering addicts, I just felt like, this is it. This is my disease. It makes no sense because I'm in a room full of men. I have nothing in common with these people, and yet I have everything in common with them. And these 7 years of psychotherapy I've been in, like, haven't solved this problem. And this one meeting has changed something forever in me. And I felt like this life doesn't work. I need to be free. I need to go back home in a spiritual sense. I miss God. I miss what he had for me. And that's when I made that decision to trust the program 100% and see how that goes for me. I just thought, you know what? I've been wasting my life for the last couple of years. It won't hurt me to waste another one in a different way. So I decided I was going to go all in. I made a list of the things I wasn't allowed to do during this 1 year. I told myself I wasn't allowed to date, to choose to change a job, to even travel, because I wanted to focus like purely on the program. And well, I don't have that much time left, so I won't go into details. But it really worked. It's amazing how quickly my life progressed. And it's funny when I remember how much fear I had that if I trusted God with everything I had, and I would give up romantic relationships and go so kind of cold turkey, like no text messages with men, no coffee in the city, like no male friends, like program and sponsor and my job, that I was going to lose everything that is kind of fun and interesting in life, and that I would be somehow punished. And how would I even get into a relationship if I go out of practice? And I had all these rationalizations in my mind. But thank goodness I trusted the program. And after 1 year, I felt that something changed. And by this point, I already knew Radek, Andrew. And I mean, when I joined the fellowship, I noticed him. I thought he was an attractive man, but I really blocked it out of my mind because I wanted to focus on recovery. And after working the steps and after 1 year and talking with my sponsor who thought I was ready to date, I just felt like this infatuation hasn't gone away in a year. And that was new, because before my infatuations were like coming and going and changing, and it wasn't really personal. Like I would have this huge infatuation, and then in a couple of weeks it was like, who are you? And that was different. Like it lasted a year, and it was milder and didn't give me that much anxiety, and it wasn't so possessive and egocentric. I felt like I really, really wanted to see this guy succeed. I really wanted him to have a good relationship with another woman, even if it meant not me. It was like I really was cheering him up inside as a fellow recovering addict. And there was a lot of respect and love, but not in a way that I knew before. And I talked to my sponsor, and she listened to me, and I was panicked that she would say, you know, like, this is he's on your abstinence list. But she said, that sounds kind of healthy. And I was surprised. And she said, well, give it a go. And I did, and I contacted him, and we met, and it all started out. Oh, I'm past 7 minutes already. Well, to finish it up and give it to my husband, I would just like to say that what is so lovely about being married and what's so different than dating when I wasn't sober is that what has changed is that my husband is extremely important to me. I love him very much, but I know that he cannot be the most important thing for me, that our relationship is not what's going to ultimately fill me. I know that there is a void in me that has the shape of God, and if I don't fill it with relationship with God, I'm going to be dissatisfied forever, and I'm going to look for what is wrong with our marriage and what is wrong with my husband. And when I started dating, I was in a place where I felt like it's okay if we end up together, and it's okay if we don't. And that was absolutely different than before. I felt that I was free, and I didn't think of what he can give me, but I was thinking about what I'm capable of giving him. And if what I had was not what he was looking for, then ultimately that was fine, you know, because that means I'm not going to make him happy, and I want him to be happy. So that was different. And 1 year of sobriety and working the steps was what made it different. And what marriage gives us as well is that I personally believe that my sex addiction is based on very deep bonding trauma, and that always made me fearful in relationships, that someone was going to leave. If I showed my darkest, deepest thoughts and feelings, that person was going to run away. And I think in the first year of our marriage, which was nightmare, to be honest, because we had to unpack our worst faults. And like we would really touch on our wounds and annoy the hell out of each other. And if we were not married, I'm absolutely sure that we would break up, because before we had this approach of like, if it doesn't work, thank you, next, you know, I will just move on. It's easy, just running away from yourself all the time and then repeating the same pattern with another partner. And marriage really put that in the havoc. I'm not sure if that's the right expression. American is like, it gives it a stop. And it was like, okay, like we promise to one another in front of God and other people. We believe what our religion tells us, that this is forever. So shit, like we really have to dig deeper and sort things out. Like there's no escape.
Yeah.
And that's when I believe my deepest healing started to, like that's when it started. And that's when I understood, I started to understand what humility is. It's like you swallow your huge wounded ego and you just serve something that is bigger than your emotions. And for me, marriage is something bigger than our emotions that come and go in marriage. Like I won't lie to you, like sometimes it's rainbows and sometimes it's horrible. But what keeps us together is prayer and 12 steps.
Sure.
Okay, I'm done.
I love when she speaks. Go on, baby. Yeah, true. I mean, this is it. I mean, I will start from that point, maybe that in our marriage there are three of us. It's Sara, it's me, and it's God. And this is the most important and the biggest change. This is the game changer. I love the story when how my wife get into recovery, and it was so different from mine, because the beginning seems to be similar, right? I was sex addict for most of my life. For almost all my relationships were, having that in the background. And I ended up acting out with prostitutes, which was like my lowest low. And actually, I was still trying to live my life the way I wanted it, and I designed it. It was all about me, my idea, and I was like, ego-driven, egomaniac. But somehow I ended up in empty, dark, spiritual death, let's say, kind of feeling. And I tried many therapies before, because I knew something is wrong with me, something is wrong with my relations, something is detaching me from people. Like I felt like I was surrounded by a kind of thick glass window or something like that, or a cube, and I'm inside it and the world is outside it, and I don't have connection with it. So I knew that something is wrong. And then some bell ringed, and I thought, oh my God, something I have about sex reminds me of this, what I had about drugs. And this thought in my head, like, made me Google SA, and I went into a first meeting, and the same feeling, like I went to the basement of some kind of church, and I felt filled with men that I really didn't have anything to do with it, and no connection at all. And after first meeting, I went like, wow, I mean, why they are speaking about me? Why they are, telling my story? And it was something that was really, really annoying for me at SA, and I couldn't really stand it, but I had no choice. Really, because I went to therapy and that didn't work out. I went to individual, group, anything. Before that didn't work out. So for me, and this thing that annoyed me so much was sobriety definition. Sobriety definition of SA, and let me just read it. I have this English version here. In defining sobriety, we do not speak for those outside Sexaholic Anonymous. We can only speak for ourselves. Thus, for the married sexaholic, sexual sobriety means having no form of sex with self or with persons other than the spouse. In SA's sobriety definition, the term spouse refers to one's partner in a marriage between a man and a woman. For the unmarried sexaholic, sexual sobriety means freedom from sex of any kind. And for all of us, single and married alike, sexual sobriety also includes progressive victory over lust. So that was the thing that made me want to cry when I first heard it, like, or even not cry, but shout maybe more, because it was contradicting everything I knew in my life, everything. And this thought that, what? I mean, I could only have sober sex when I will be married. It was like something that really couldn't comprehend. Like I couldn't grab this idea, but I kept on coming back. And that's what I guess saved me. For the first 4 years in SA, I was relapsing permanently. I was trying to do things my way, maybe not 100%, but let's say 80% my way, 70%, 50% my way, some kind of this, my old me was always present. But I remember after first, second, or third unsuccessful attempt to get into relationship, I remember this feeling, and it was just before Sara contacted me, that I remember this prayer and this kind of two-way prayer with God, that I was saying like, okay, God, I was trying. I didn't make it my way, but if you want me to sacrifice my need and desire to be in a relationship for you, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm ready for it. I'm tired like this, with this unsuccessful attempt. And I just said, okay, I'm ready. If you want me to be single, I will be single. No problem. I'm happy about it. I was really even happy about this idea that I will be single, having multiple friends in SA, going all over the world, maybe sharing my story or something, or doing some kind of service. And I had this something like never before in my life, that I'm 100% sure that I can be single and I can be happy. And then she contacted me. So it was kind of...
We both made that sacrifice.
Yeah.
I wasn't that happy about it, but I was kind of okay about it.
Yeah, I was happy about it, I remember. And this is something that really freed me in a way. And then we have this between each other. We were always telling that, okay, if you really give something to God 100%, it's always like you are lending him, and he gives back to you twice.
He doesn't steal from you, he just borrows.
And that works for us in a marriage ever since. So really, like, okay, nuts and bolts. We were dating for 1 year. We didn't have any kind of intimacy between us, and it was contradicting everything we knew from the word, everything what our friends were saying.
You have to try yourselves.
You have to try yourselves. Check yourselves, like sexually. How sexually and things like that. We said, okay, no, we don't do it. The essay says directly, like, don't do it. So I was tired of trying my way. So okay, I decided to trust 100%. It was kind of difficult, really, but it made our day during the wedding. We are able to say that this wedding day changed everything in our life, in our relationship. It was like a really magical day. And I believe I was a virgin, she was a virgin at that time, because we kind of get it back, like because of recovery, because of staying sober.
And it was our first sober sex, so in a way it was like first time. Because it was like nothing like anything before what we knew.
Yeah, exactly. So, and after that, we had our first intimacy, and it was great for me. It was like, I never knew that it can connect love and sexuality, that it can be connected. I didn't had this experience in my entire life. And I was crying after our first night. But then the old me came, and old me started to ask a lot of questions, have a lot of fears and doubts. And I must say, SA gave me very clear directions how to get into a sober dating and how to do a sober dating, but how to stay sober in the marriage and okay, I had some guidelines. But I was totally not sure what it means in, let's say, I'm sorry, I'm missing the English. Chodzi mi o to, wiesz, taki regularne życie, wiesz.
Yeah, what Andrew used to say, I guess, is like, how do you stay sober while having regular intercourse with your wife?
And
like,
regular sex life.
You know, like if you're a drug addict, you just go clean and you never touch drugs again. If you're a sex addict and you're married, like how can you be sober and have sex?
And especially I was experiencing some difficulties. I had some kind of hangover feeling, for example, after our intimacy, because it was new. I had like a long break in my sex life. So it wasn't really clear, and I didn't get a clear guidance, let's say guidelines from our fellowship. So, and still I was kind of frozen here, like in heart, because the sex life is just a peak of an iceberg. So the iceberg is the whole, my emotional structure is the iceberg. So was the iceberg, let's say, and my heart were still not open at the time. So it took us a year of let's say tuning into each other, and after a year,
it's a mild way.
It's a mild way. Yeah, it was like it was many difficulties, and we had to invite God a lot. I mean, without Him, it wouldn't be possible.
And claim our hopelessness to our egos.
That's for sure. And after that, after 1 year, we had kind of crisis situation that Sara, she moved, like she said, okay, I'm leaving, and I'm, leaving to my friend's place, and I'm waiting you to kind of figure it out. She was waiting for me to figure it out, how to change my heart and be more open to her. And it was for sure my issue that time. And I was really struggling with myself, and having lots of calls with my sponsor and the fellows from my spiritual formation from my church. And somehow God broke my heart, let's say. I mean, melted my heart. And
gave you a heart of flesh.
Yeah. And since that time, I started to, let's say, emotionally be open much more than before. And how to wrap it up? I mean, for me, like this whole, thing about the relationship issues. I'm sorry about my English, but okay, what I mean to say is that before recovery, it was always me. In recovery, it's me versus God, still struggling, right? So, so in our relationship, maybe you wrap it up, honey. I'm sorry, guys. I kind of lost my thoughts.
I don't know. Maybe to end it, I'll just say, because that might be interesting for other folks. What is it like to be married to another addict? I'd say it's difficult, but if you both are in recovery, it's possible. And I believe it can be easier than to be with a non-addict. But then you have 2 addictions and 2 codependencies. And you really need a lot of work and working with grace. And that's what we try to do. So thanks for hearing us out. And maybe if you have any questions, Justin, you would answer those.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew and Sara. That was powerful. I loved the interaction that you had there. I love the story, the hope that you provide, and the realness, hey, this isn't easy. The solution is not easy to do it this way, but the hope that it is possible. I believe there are so many people out there that are looking for that hope, and I think that your story provides that. All right. A reminder to our live audience, if you have questions for Andrew and or Sara, either way or both, please type them in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. It looks like 2 speech bubbles over the top of each other. I will get to those as they come in. But in the meantime, I have a couple of thoughts and questions that I've written down that I'd like to ask each of you. So, Sara, you talked about surrendering rationalizations. You tried to rationalize all these different things. Oh, but I can't do that. I need this. I need that. And you both talked about this a little bit. But what is the importance of surrendering my own rationalizations in recovery, of thinking that, oh, that doesn't pertain to me, I need to cross that line? Why is that important to give those up?
Well, I just don't know if it works any other way. Like, if you don't give up rationalizing at some point, can you get sober? I know I haven't. It always kind of makes you go back to what you know, and also you become the main leader of your life. And if your navigating system is broken, how can you navigate your life? So if you keep having your own ideas and kind of pushing away the solution of 12 steps, and or what your sponsor tells you, or what other people in faith or in recovery tell you, how can you really heal? I don't know. I think it's as simple as that. It just never worked for me. And I must tell you, I hated having a sponsor. I hated it. There was never a good sponsor enough for me. I was always smarter than them. Like, they were never my level of intelligence and wit and everything. It's kind of embarrassing to admit to that, but that's what my pattern of thinking like. But it really annoyed me, but I knew I really needed it. And that was the first time when I thought, okay, like, we know, Sara, how it worked for you when you were trying to lead your life. It's not working. So shut up, swallow your pride, and try to do what this sister in fellowship is trying to tell you, or just don't answer. Just give yourself a minute to think about it. And sometimes when I was really fed up with the program and how radical it is, I was just, sometimes it was helpful for me to think, okay, it's only for 1 year. And then I can act out and do all these, wild things and go back to my old self. We have this saying, 1 day at a time, 24 hours. So sometimes I would take the program 5 minutes at a time because I couldn't stand more of it. I have a huge rebellious streak to my personality, and I honestly have no idea how I managed to give into the program and stay sober. I think it's a miracle. And it just shows how efficient 12-step program is. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Sara. And Andrew, you also talked about how in the first several years of working within the fellowship that you gave, 60% or 70%, you alluded to the half measures concept of the big book. Tell me your perspective on why that doesn't work.
To put it the simplest, because I ended up after acting out, if I didn't surrender 100%. I've heard from my sponsor that the only step that I have to do in 100% is the first step. So first step is actually giving up the idea that I can do something about my recovery, that I can myself only can do something about my addiction, let's say, right? So if I don't in 100% surrender to higher power, higher than myself, which means, for example, making a short phone call to somebody when I want to act out, or going to a meeting, or doing some service. If I don't do that, then I'm ending up always the same. So the first step has to be 100%. And that's what I learned. And that's what I learned painfully on my multiple relapses, because I really relapsed in all possible ways. After one day, after 1 week, after 1 month, after 6 months, after 1 year. And just the only thing that I did is that I was really getting the best lessons from my relapses. I was writing it down in 12-step manner as an inventory, and I was keeping these pages in front of my computer on my wall, and it says, okay, I mean, and I was, out of respect for my, let's say, IQ, I said, okay, no more. This is your lesson. You paid for it. Your ass is hurt. And now just, give next time not 50% of yourself, give 60% of yourself. And, like this. And step by step, I said, okay, there's no way other than 100%.
And it's interesting how our experiences are completely different, because I've stayed sober ever since I joined my first meeting. And it's not thanks to my willpower or anything. I think it's only thanks to the grace of God. And also I have like mild Asperger's syndrome. And that's actually extremely helpful, because I'm like very black and white. And I was like, okay, so that's how you've been living and that's not working. So let's try this list of instructions and see how it goes. And also, I've heard that the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and experiencing a different outcome. And I was like, okay, that's illogical. So let's just give it up. And
I was always I had a dog, like for many years, bull terrier, and he was like my addiction. I mean, I could tell him 100 times, and it was my story, different from Sara's. I could tell him 100 times, don't go on the sofa. And he will try with just one hand, like maybe second. So this is my addiction, So yeah, it was my story. Yeah.
I love that visual of that. Thank you for sharing that, Andrew and Sara. Good stuff. Sara, I want to go back to something you shared early in your share. You talked about how you were, I think you said in Paris, and you had just hit a bottom and you cried out to God. You screamed out to God, if you're there, I need you to yell at me. Give me a sign. Had you ever done that previously? And have you ever felt like, I didn't get an answer, I'm just going to continue on? Or did you ever deny that before? Or is that kind of a first time in your life where you really called out in desperation?
Thanks for that, Justin. That really moved me, actually. It moved me back to that moment, and it was extremely moving. I remember it to this day. And when I think about my life, no, I don't think I've ever yelled to God. I was always very pleasant with him and very kind of, I know that you're very busy doing other things, but if you have just like 5 minutes, maybe you could just look into my case. But if not, never mind, I got this. That was my previous approach. And I was never like blunt with him. And this time I was like, I am so bloody annoyed with you. Like, I've been praying for years. I'm depressed as hell. I'm getting worse. I'm not getting any answers. Like, you were supposed to protect me and help me. And I was like really full of it. And I think that's the first time God really answered, because it was the first time I was really honest with him. And it was the first time I actually asked him for anything. And I admitted that I am dependent on him, which I didn't want to admit because I was really hurt in relationships with my first caregivers, my parents. And for me, being dependent was the worst hell ever, because it meant that I'm going to show my heart and I'm going to be rejected. And I think that was the moment when I felt like I have nowhere to go. Like, I have nowhere to go. And if you don't help me, I'm going to end my life. That's what I said. So that there was a bit of blackmail there, but it worked. Like, he answered, and I really remembered like his voice. And I even kind of had a visual of him kind of reaching to me and stroking my head. And also I opened the Bible, and there was a passage from Isaiah, which I tattooed on my arm afterwards. And it was like, do not fear, because you are chosen and I love you. And if you go through fire, you will not get burned. And if you go through waters, they will not flood you. And I felt like, okay, like now I'm not on my own. And the next day I was back home and I was in the fellowship. And yeah, that's
beautiful. Thank you. I'm just going to share a little bit about my own, my wife, actually. She is very good at, when she's frustrated or angry or happy, or, you know, whatever her emotion is, expressing that to God honestly. And I think, well, that example is great for me. How do you now, as you continue to walk in this path, Andrew, as you feel frustrated or whatever, do you voice that honestly with God, or do you kind of be like, well, if you've got a minute, can you help me for a second?
You know, this is, I was, when just Sara was saying, I like reminded myself this feeling, you know, like even before this meeting, like we had some kind of argument like last night over like simple thing, and I still had some kind of like a little bit of resentment, a little bit of fear, a little bit of that and that. And I really kneeled and said, like, honestly to God, like, God, help me, because I just need your help with every single thing, because old me is waiting like a vampire in a dark corner, you know, like, you know, it's there. It's not a joke. And this, I think I honestly talk with God since the moment that I've met him. I learned that he wants me to be honest. He wants me to be specific about things. He wants not to just generally say, okay, bless me or save me. Just like, in what way? Tell me, son, like, what do you want specifically? And that's why it's like, you know, 10-step inventory that specifically I'm writing the defect of character that I want to be relieved. And specifically I'm writing down the amends and everything. So like I have to be really specific and really, really precise about it. And I love it, because before, when I didn't know God, I was just full of generalizations, which meant nothing. You know, I was just, yeah. So I love this passage in our literature that says, find God or die, because honestly, I don't know how I could be living my life without addressing him directly and honestly. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Both very helpful answers. I appreciate that. From our live audience, Anna asks a two-part question, and I'm going to ask it in two separate parts here. Did you both take any other extra precautions in dating to make sure you were dating healthily or sober?
Yeah, we did. First of all, we seeked guidance. We both had sponsors and SA, and we both listened to them very carefully. And I was open to my sponsor's suggestion. Like when I first felt that maybe my infatuation with Andrew was something bigger, I didn't keep it to myself, because we are as sick as our secrets. So I called her, I told her about it. And that was my way also of giving up control, that I'm willing to listen to what she's going to tell me, like to her feedback. And if she tells me that it kind of sounds lustful or not really healthy, like I'll probably be angry with it, but I'll probably accept it and not date him at all, or at this particular time. So getting green lights from both of our sponsors was important to us, to know that we are not doing it our way only. And second of all, we were getting concrete guidance from our sponsors, like, don't meet just the two of you, because that creates too much of intimacy. just meet in a bigger group of friends. And this way you can get to know one another without this kind of intimate vibe. And
but also this pressure, like
and pressure.
I need to be someone, or she won't.
Yeah, and then you can also like naturally observe one another, how you interact with people, which is important. Like when I was an addict, I missed out on all of important data, like how is he with his mother, or like how does he treat his dog, what is his job like. I never asked these questions. It was like, oh, we're soulmates, and like this time we both took more rational approach, like see how you really are. And take time, like date for a couple of dates with a bigger group. Then once you feel more ready, have like a cooking date when you do something fun, and not just to sit on the sofa and stare into each other's eyes, because that also creates space for intimacy. So, and we never, like Andrew was very good at making sure that he never stays for the night. Like if I was at his place, he would always drive me back home before 10. And if he was at my place, he would go to his place. Like we never stayed under one roof together before we got married, even when we were engaged. And of course, we had some sort of closeness, like we would hug and we would kiss, but we wouldn't make it very passionate, or like we wouldn't lay on the couch or create any of this.
No, we did actually. Yeah, I remember. Okay. I wanted to mention this, that of course we are not perfect. Sometimes we were doing a bit too much, but then we had to do a step back. Yeah. And for example, I remember this because once we realized that we are watching a movie on the sofa, then we are kind of kissing, then I ended up lying almost on her, and then we came to the conclusion, okay, if sofa, then no kissing, no hugging. We can kiss and hug, just I don't know, walking in a park or something like that. It was very simple rules that gives us some kind of hygiene.
And we were both honest with one another. I think that was important. Like if we were feeling like, we had this rule that if one of us would feel like there was lust, we would share that with one another. Or keeping abstinence was becoming difficult, we would share that and support our definition. And keeping
But it was very funny because, like, imagine yourself that you are in a Victorian novel or in a rural country, countryside village in Muslim country or something like that. That's how they make it. That's how they used to make it, and it worked for life.
And it's arranged, so other people are at play, and
it's. I mean, from our perspective, it's like it's abstract.
From the Western culture of romantic love, but I think it's overrated.
But imagine yourself in a Victorian novel, and then you meet in a group, always safe distance, talking. Then you have your kind of sponsor, which is your auntie. Let's say that she's out, like kind of authority for you, and you really listen to her because she knows what she means. So. Yeah, it was like that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you both for sharing that vulnerability that, hey, you know what, things weren't perfect and we had to be open and honest with each other when the pull started coming in. The second half of that question from Anna is there anything you wish you had done in dating to make the first year of marriage easier?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure. Like I could say, maybe go on a therapy, but probably not. I mean, I think some things were hard because we were married, because we crossed that, how to say, like the dynamic of our relationship clearly changed. It's a completely different thing if you're just dating and you're living in separate places and you have your own agenda, your own work. You go back to your place and even if you're dating like every day, and we would see one another a lot when we were engaged, but like our lives were not disrupted by us being together. And then from that independence, you go into living in the same place, seeing that person every single day. You start discovering their cleaning habits or lack of cleaning habits, the annoying little things. And also sex comes to play. Like if you don't have intimacy, physical intimacy in a relationship, you're kind of like friends or brothers or and sister. Like we really felt like we went from friends to romantic lovers, and that was a shock. And I think because the sex was at play, that's where our wounds opened up, because that sexuality is the place of our wounding and of our trauma. And I don't think we could kind of touch that in any other way than just trying.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I was kind of sure that after we get married, we will have to get into therapy soon. And that's what I told him. It's like, okay, I'm going to marry you, but we're going into therapy once we're married, because we have a lot of issues. But I don't think we could have worked it before. I think
No.
you can be really good at hiding your wounds if you have that physical space. And when you become one, that's a completely different story. Like, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have one more question. We'll hit on this next question, and this will be our last one for the day before we close up. But this comes from Gary from our live audience. Are there any specific tools you use to keep lust out of the bedroom in marriage?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I answer that. Okay, so I've been told by my sponsor and others in SA, and I really believe it's true, that the lust comes to play when I'm not there. Yeah, this is the lustful sex when I'm not there, which means I'm somewhere else, and in my head, let's say, in my imagination or memories or whatever. And secondly, if one of us is not agreed to have this intimacy. So this is for me these two factors of let's say lustful sex. And any specific tools about it? I mean, definitely the first specific tool is that when I'm not feeling quite all right with myself, okay, when I'm not, let's say, fully there, when I'm having worst day, let's say, not 100% present, let's say, yeah. So I'm trying to avoid sex. For example, this is the simplest tool that I can tell of. That just for me, there are some days that I just not capable of having a healthy sexual relationship, and this is, I think this is the first one and the most important, I think. What would be the other? Frankly speaking, I don't remember lustful sex between us.
Something,
yeah,
from my perspective. It's kind of a shame that we haven't touched on one issue, which is kind of interesting, that after we got married, we discovered to our kind of amazement that we have a very different expectations, and our level of libido is like a lot different. Like my expectations were higher and my needs were higher, and Andrew's were lower, and that would create a lot of conflict. Like that was the reason why we would argue so much. That was one of the reasons.
Yeah.
So what I have discovered for myself, that like I am not sober in terms of sex addiction and codependency if I'm seeking in sex something different than as being intimate and close together. So if Andrew is feeling unwell and he's telling me, honey, I really don't feel like it, and I'm getting angry about it, then that's probably not very sober on my part, because I'm trying to fulfill my selfish need and I'm getting pissed off about him not feeling like it, and I'm not respecting his feelings. And also when I'm trying to fulfill my need of adoration and love and acceptance, as Anon, I have experienced that I tend to fulfill other needs through sexuality. So if I'm not in touch with me feeling lonely or unheard or sad, and I'm detaching from those and I'm seeking sex, then there's something off. It's sometimes hard to catch, but marriage is really good that way, that it's a mirror. It mirrors you because there's the other person at play, and you can kind of see if this intimacy is what you're after, or you're after something else, which is selfish.
But I also want to mention one more thing, that during our, let's say, sexual life, I was meditating on it and I was praying on it. I was really seeking guidance about it. But in my, let's say, quiet time, in my times of my, let's say, reflection, which means not at the moment when we are going, for example, to bed or something, not at that moment or after that. It was just happening before, when I was asking God, okay, God, show me how to do it your way. So
sometimes we even prayed during having sex.
Well, before that, right?
Sometimes I would pray during.
You prayed during.
Yes.
Okay.
It's inviting God into it, and it sounds kind of weird, but sometimes that would help as well.
Such good stuff. I think that we need to do a follow-up on this and have another conversation in the future with you two. There's good stuff, and I think there's a lot deeper that we can go with a lot more information. So I'll follow up with you at some point here, and maybe we can do that if you're open to that. But right now it's time to close up. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Andrew and Sara. That was a great RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting for all addicts and those wanting to learn more about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If we didn't get to your questions here in the live audience, or you want to learn more, please go to rico12.com/forum and join in our community there and ask those questions and answer other questions that may come up. I invite the audience to come back again next week. If you've not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please go do so now. It is a great way for us to work our 12th step in sharing this message with others. Next week, we will be hearing from Eric H., who is just marking 2 years of sober in his recovery, and we're excited to hear from his energy and excitement for recovery. Now, let's launch off into the rest of our day with the Serenity Prayer in Polish. I'm really excited about this, led by Andrew and Sara. Go ahead.
Razem użyć nam pogody ducha, abym godził się z tym, czego nie mogę zmienić, odwagi, abym zmieniał to, co mogę zmienić, i mądrości, abym odróżniał jedno od drugiego. Dziękuję Ci, Boże, za to, co mi dałeś, za to, co mi zabrałeś i za to, czego mi zaoszczędziłeś. Niech się dzieje wola Twoja, a nie moja, Panie. Do zobaczenia w trzeźwości. All right.
Love it. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Amen. Keep coming back. Keep working it. It works if you work it, so work it. You are worth it.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground. sing.